Welcome to the Driving for Dollars podcast, the place to be for house flipping tips, tricks, and advice that's raw and unfiltered, but works. Learn to generate more leads and deals through our marketing expertise. Now, let's get into the show. What's up, everybody? This is the Driving for Dollars podcast. Hey, I'm back in your earbuds this week. Got another great episode for you with some tips on how to effectively drive for dollars. And then, of course, how to more effectively utilize our Driving for Dollars app as well. So this episode, I want to start off with a story real quick about a property that we're actually almost done with the construction on. And it was a Driving for Dollars lead. Now, this was a lead that we actually accumulated back before we had our Driving for Dollars app technology. We actually physically drove around, wrote down addresses, went back to the office, researched who owned it, put it together in an Excel spreadsheet, and then blasted out mail to these people on a continual basis. Now, of course, our app streamlines that whole process for you, plus gives you a lot more data, basically just dropping a pin and running your list. So it eliminates the pain in the ass factor. But the point of this story is that we created this list about sometime probably mid 2014, somewhere around there. And so what we did is we recognized that there was an area that was on the come up, we'll call it, right? It was going to be improving pretty dramatically over the course of the next few years, or at least I thought so. And as it turned out, that was also the case. But the reason why is because it was kind of a centrally located area within a nicer area, but there hadn't been a whole lot of commercial redevelopment that had gone on in that little pocket, as far as amenities, Starbucks, shopping, restaurants, things like that. It was pretty limited on what it had in terms of those types of amenities. Now, Zupan's moved in, which for those of you that are not familiar with Zupan's, it's basically like a kind of a higher end, nice, grocery store. You don't want to buy everything there because you'll spend your whole paycheck, but it's got a lot of nice stuff. But then with that anchor type tenant in the commercial space came a lot of other kind of restaurants and bakeries and Starbucks and things like that kind of came in around it. And so before you know it, by that commercial redevelopment occurring or those new tenants coming in and they reface some commercial complexes, now all of a sudden there's a lot more amenities there. And, basically over the course of a couple of years, this turned into one of the hottest areas to live in. And this isn't in downtown Portland, it's in Lake Oswego actually, but it's a part of Lake Oswego that's dramatically improved over the last few years. So the point is that we initially got our first project in this area, and it was a project actually for myself. We bought a tear down and we built a house for myself. Now at that same time, as I was kind of spending more time in this area, I realized that this area was about to really blow up. And because of that, we built a number of Driving for Dollars lists kind of right around where it is that I live. And from that, we actually ended up buying a whole bunch of property. And so what I want to talk about here is that, number one, we bought a bunch of property, but number two is we bought one property in particular, and it's a property where I'm actually building a new house for myself on. And this was an amazing piece of property. It's almost an entire acre. It's totally flat. It's on an amazing street. The Blazers head coach is going to be my new next door neighbor. But the point is that we recognize this lead. What was there previous was just a little kind of 30s shack, so to speak, on a really nice street on a lot that was completely overgrown. And it was just a matter of time before it got redeveloped. And so we started marketing to the owner of this particular property probably about mid-2014. And then he actually contacted us towards the end of about 2016, probably mid to late 2016 is when he contacted us. And so it took about 2 years of marketing this guy before he actually reached out to us. And the reason he reached out to us is because his wife had passed away And at that point, he didn't want to live in the house anymore. He was ready to kind of travel the world, take his winnings, because he realized that the house was on a street that was, far superior to the actual structure that was on this property, and the dirt value had far exceeded the value of the house. But the point is, timing lined up. At that point, he was ready to sell, and he knew that it was best sold to kind of a non-end user in its current state. So basically selling it to somebody who was going to redevelop the property. And because we had been marketing to him for a sustained amount of time from this list that we built with foresight a couple years prior, he gave us a call. And he gave us a call because there was some realtors kind of chasing him down as well, and they were kind of hard selling him, and he didn't like the way that they were coming at him. And so he reached out to us, and we were able to start a relationship. We ended up buying the property, and I'm building a new house for myself there now. And it's probably the most amazing piece of property on this entire street. And it's really this whole area, which is why I'm moving. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But the point is that I'm trying to make here is that when you build these lists, these assets for your business, it allows you to really pinpoint the most amazing pieces of property that are prime for redevelopment, prime for selling, prime for flipping, renovating, whatever it is. You build these assets, which are the lists, easily now via our app, and then you continually market to them over time. And if you do that, eventually you will get to the front of the line to be able to have a conversation with these people in order to try and buy the property. And you'll end up doing a lot of projects that are really, really awesome projects that are super easy to sell, that are super highly desirable. Or if you're, an agent and you're listing properties and you're looking for, clients, you'll get these projects that your builders, your rehabbers, whoever will love, or, potentially end users could love too, depending on what you're going after. But mainly the point here is that it's a sustained marketing effort that gets you in front of these leads, that gets you in front of these deals. You can't just expect that you're going to mail them one-off, direct mail piece, whether it be postcard, letter, whatever, and expect that that's going to yield you results, especially not right now in this environment. So you really need to look at it like, hey, I'm going to build this list. I'm going to continually market to this list. And over time, the results from marketing this list are going to feed me. And that's the way you have to look at marketing in general, but more specifically, building out your Driving for Dollars list. So remember that it's a timing thing, but also it's an ongoing action in your business to market to these lists that you create, and then when they do call, they're the absolute best leads that you can possibly get. So keep that in mind. It's just an important thing because we're in kind of an instant gratification type society these days. And, if you build a list and you don't get, instantly get 5 listings from mailing that list, or, buy a property that you can flip and make $100,000, you feel like it's a failure and it doesn't work. And that's absolutely not the case. It's a sustained effort that it takes in doing anything really to become good at it, but especially in marketing these days, in order to give yourself a chance to buy the best properties in any area. So keep that in mind. Now, our Driving for Dollars tip this week is one that I don't think a lot of people recognize within our app that it has the capability of doing. We've had some people that said, hey, you should give it the ability to rate the leads that you add to your list. And we don't have like a rating scale because that would get a little tedious, right? If you labeled one a 1, another one a 3, another one a 5, after a while, it's like, what's the point? You're going to kind of lump them into 2 categories, either best or not best, right? After you build the list. And so we have a favorite feature. So you can favorite your leads after you add them to your list, and then you can export just your favorites. So that way, let's say for the example of the story that I told, that would have been an undeveloped, almost entire acre on an amazing high dollar, $1 million street while we're driving for dollars. That would have been a favorite, right? So we would export that to our favorites. And then from there, you can kind of plan your marketing accordingly, right? You can spend more money on the marketing to your favorites because those are the absolute cream of the crop, Driving for Dollars leads versus just kind of your average run-of-the-mill Driving for Dollars leads. So you can mark your favorites, and then you can export them as your favorites, and then you can kind of organize your marketing depending on how much you want to spend to try and start a conversation with those favorites versus your run-of-the-mill Driving for Dollars leads. So that's this week's Driving for Dollars tip. We may throw a tutorial video on how to do that in the show notes. We'll see if Dan's got one. He can put the link there for it and show you guys how to do it. But really cool feature, and that way you can kind of organize your ad spend or your marketing spend based on, how much you like the leads on the Driving for Dollars list that you created. All right, guys, that's this week's or today's Driving for Dollars tips on how to do it more effectively and also how to utilize our app. I'll see you guys on the next episode.